You guys, your fans have been donating a lot of blood.
A fuck ton of
Which I
blood.
think is a
Unbelievable
wild
amount of blood.
that's a wild, thing to have, your fans kinda, "Hey, if you wanna support the band or support whatnot, go and donate blood."
Sure.
Um, how did that come about? Kinda talk a little bit about that side of it.
Well, it goes back to Wasp. My manager Blasco is a native Angelino, and he
Oh,
grew up
nice.
going to shows in LA. And in the mid '80s, he went to go see a show at the Whiskey that was a headline show that Wasp was doing, where they were doing blood donations for a free radio ticket or something like that. Something to do with like K Rock or something.
Yeah.
And it stuck in his head. And years later, we were talking about what some stuff we could do with this tour. And, I forget who said it first, but at some point he brought up, he goes, well, actually, when I was a kid, I saw this thing happen. And then we were like, wow, that's amazing. So he and I started kind of, how can we do this on a larger scale and make it something where there's an altruistic effort behind us doing this, and would the American Red Cross be interested in partnering with us on this? And much to our surprise, they were very interested, and they've been a great partner, and things are going super well.
When I was a kid, Megadeth did a canned food drive, for the local food thing. So if you gave 10 pounds of food, you got a backstage pass or a meet and greet pass.
Yeah,
And so, yeah, to this day, it's like I still have a backstage pass somewhere that's like feed the hungry or something. But yeah, I mean,
yeah.
it's great when bands can take, their fame and popularity and kind of turn it around and do something good like this.
Well, we grew up in the Warped Tour world, and I learned a lot from Kevin Lyman. But one of the things that I always really respect about him is his interest in philanthropy and altruistic efforts, and that's something that every Warped Tour for the last like 15 years of Warped Tour, if you brought canned goods, you could get in, for the show. So they were always across America. There's a lot that's said about Warped Tour these days, and I think a lot of times people forget just how much good was done with the tour and what it meant to so many people.
Yeah, I mean, the Warp Tour, looking back on it now, like so many days of just, I know you guys played a ton of them, and me as a kid going to a ton in the, 90s into the 2000s, and just that I was thinking the other day, I was like, kids, one of these kids these days don't understand, like, just getting dropped off at like a giant concrete parking lot with no
Yeah.
money, no water, like, and just, basically just dehydrating all day to check out Rancid and no effects.
Yeah.
It was such a
I
wild
was, I was
time.
talking to Will and from Creeper, and because they're from the UK, but they're fans of all the same sort of bands. And I said, you have to understand, when I was 12 years old, I stood at one stage and I saw, in order, Dropkick Murphys, Rancid, and AFI all play back to back to back, and I didn't have to move. Like, that is, you'd have to pay $8 million and go to Vegas, and for one of those kind of things nowadays. And that was in a parking lot in Cincinnati, like, just but near my house. Like, it was unbelievable. And I would, I mean, I've always said, I realized how different the interests that I had were from some of the quote unquote heroes that I had when I started to meet them. And so much of, and this is not a criticism, but so many of the bigger bands that I had met early in our career would talk about money and all this other stuff, which is obviously important. You need money to live, but um, it never even, when I was little, it didn't occur to me, like, my biggest dream was to just be on the other side of the fence at Warped Tour, like, to be one of those people who got to go into the trailer behind the stage and then come out on stage and play for 30 minutes and then go back, and live my life in whatever Warped Tour was. There's almost nothing in the whole world that is more impactful to me and meant more to me. I met my wife on Warped Tour. We were both artists playing a Warped Tour. We met, fell in love. We ended up doing subsequently 4 or 5 Warped Tours together after we were together. I met some of my best friends in the world. It was, I would count down the days as a kid growing up in Cincinnati. I cannot wait until Warped Tour is at Riverbend again. And it was just everything to me. So I know that, and the interesting thing about it is, and this is not to negate what people experienced, but for me, I never, maybe it's because I was head in the clouds, just so excited about the whole experience. And then ultimately, like I said, I met my wife. So then she and I are in the throes of falling in love and La La Land, walking around. But all of the negative that's come out subsequently about Warped Tour is nothing that I ever experienced. So it's very hard for me to come to terms with some of those stories that have come out about what was happening in different capacities of the tour versus what I know to be the tour's intentions, and having known Kevin Lyman for a very long time, knowing what a good and ethical person he is. So it's very hard for me to think of Warped Tour as anything other than just the most important thing that really ever happened to me as an artist.
Yeah, I made a comment on a podcast the other day saying that when I think back to like the emo era, to me, I kind of I called it an innocent time, but then like the more it came out, obviously there's a lot of stuff that happened behind the scenes and things like that that you know uh, people talking to the wrong people, stuff like that. Just there was a lot of
Yeah.
stuff behind the scenes, I guess, that didn't make it so wholesome. But to me at the time, it was a bunch of kids that were a few years younger than me getting guitars, getting on tour. And so to me, it was like it was a fun time to watch kind of the younger kids around me start their bands, get on
Of
tour.
course.
And that's
Yeah.
what I was going with. So it's kind of similar to what you're saying. Like you look back at the Warp Tour fondly and kind of like a time of innocence and the time of falling in love and but that comment could be taken out of context and being like,
Yeah,
what are you
but
talking
I guess in some degree, I'm kind of. It's been a number of years where I feel like I have to talk about this thing in like hushed tones, and I sort of am a little tired of it because
about?
it's not negating other people's experiences to say that something was important to you. And so I think I'm pretty clear in the way that I look at it as two things can be true. There could have been things that happened that were absolutely terrible, and 12-year-old me pinches myself all the time to think about the fact that I was even on it.